This is your daily real estate syndication show. I'm your host, Whitney Sewell. Our guest today is an expert in something that you need. I don't care what business you're in or even what you're doing almost. You need to know some of these things that he's going to share with us today. And ultimately, it's relationships, right? It's the relationship management piece, but how that is leading to more deals and more capital in their business. And he just shares some great tips on how they are doing that and some actionable steps. His name is Jack Martin. He's the co-founder of 5210, an Arizona real estate investment firm focused on mobile home parks. And his real estate journey spans thousands of properties across several asset classes. Jack and his partner established 5210 with core values that align with their own Midwestern values and conservative approach. But you're going to hear so many things from him today. Yes, lives in Arizona with their 7 children, which you'll also hear a little bit also about. But I was so impressed with Jack and his focus on the relationship, but not only just with investors, but also with sellers as well, and what that has done for their business. You're going to find more deals if you just do some of these things that he mentions today. You're also going to be able to raise more money, more capital, and have better relationships with your investors. You're going to serve them better if you do some of the things, even one of the things he mentions today. Yeah. Give us 1 or 2 hard things that you do to manage those relationships so well, with your investors. Maybe it's the ways you follow up or how often, or I don't know, how you get creative with just growing that relationship and keeping it going consistently.
I think without question, the most important part of this business, and this is post-investment, but you could say that those who are watching you from afar have an awareness of this. If you commit to reporting and distributing cash flow on a specific date, make sure you're on time. If you can consistently report every 90 days, we do it on a quarterly basis, and you can distribute their cash flow on the calendar as you've agreed to, that speaks volumes for you. And a lot of these investors are dipping a toe into the water, and they say, well, I like everything I hear. I love the investment thesis. I like the yields. I'm comfortable with the risk. Let's see how these guys do. Let's give them a year. Let's see how they do. And then once they see, okay, now these guys are exactly who they said they were, and they do exactly what they said they'll do. Now they're willing to drop in way more money than you thought they had. So I think without question, the most important thing is, and I believe that needs to be designed prior to you starting to buy deals. It's almost like, hey, we're going to get on the racetrack and we're going to race. And we're not thinking about tires or suspension. We just have a car. And now in the middle of the race, you can't stop and build suspension. It's too late. You're racing. So I think that you see, commonly in real estate, guys are good at real estate and they're so excited about the deal that they forget to architect a very sound communication plan with calendar events and like what leads up to that calendar event. Like, how can we be certain that we're going to report on time? Like, when do the books need to be done at every single property? On what date, so that we can meet these objectives? Same thing goes for taxes. I think the greatest pain point, and particularly when you start to attract investment capital through groups or through wealth management advisors and those kind of groups, the first question they ask is, hey, when did you deliver your K-1s to your investors last year? And if it doesn't begin with March, then they're probably going to look for somebody else. So how can you architect this? This is all. This doesn't seem like it's investor relations, but this is a lot of what makes up their experience. So in my view, it's my goal to create the best investment experience that an investor could have in this asset class. That means he's going to have access to me. Accessibility is really important. So if I'm the one who worked with him as he invested, the expectation is if I have questions in the future, they still have access to me. That cannot go away. Can't just be punted down to some low-level assistant who can't answer questions. So that's really important. But the expectation of getting of having the outcome be exactly what was promised on every scope. And here's an interesting one. If things don't go as planned, how transparent are you? So everybody that has been investing long enough has experienced, I invested with this guy, he promised this, and then this didn't show up, and I couldn't hear from them, and I didn't hear a word from them. Well, what's the first thing that happens in the investor's mindset? They're worried. Now they can't sleep. That's right. So instead, if there's, let's say that you had a hiccup in the first 6 months of this asset that you didn't anticipate, and you're not going to be able to distribute until Q3 instead of, out of the gate. Well, share that with your investors. Just come right out and share it. Be transparent. I think that you'll gain more respect from being honest and transparent than you ever would from trying to pretend like nothing happened and hope they'll ignore it.
It will only bite you later.
That's right. That's right.
It will only bite you. Yeah. It's easier to get it out there. I agree.
I think there's a common fear of disappointing investors. But the truth is, if we're guilty of one thing, we over communicate. Nobody's gotten mad about our over communication. So what's your
frequency of communicating? And we're running low on time, but give us just maybe a quick description of what you all communicate, or what's your, what do you put in an update, for investors, and what do you make sure is in there?
Yes, we have a weekly cadence of communication by email. And when we're acquiring a property, a lot of it will have to do about the acquisition, or when we're selling a property, a lot will have to do about that. But otherwise, it's industry news. It's, hey, we just hired this new person and we're excited about this. So it's a lot of just helping them stay with their finger on the pulse of the industry that we're in and the business that we're in. On a quarterly basis, every 90 days, we use a fund administrator. So, we're not doing the accounting and the distributions and the return of capital and all of the management of capital and the compliance and regulatory things associated with that. So we have a neutral third party that does all that. It's kind of nice because it adds a layer of transparency.
That would be nice.
Yeah. But they deliver P&Ls and balance sheets and member statements, specific to the investment itself. But we deliver on the same cadence every 90 days an update on the progress of the properties, and how does that progress at the property level translate to progress on the investment level. So we deliver a more kind of look inside the business. Hey guys, here's how we're doing on these properties. Here's what it looked like when we bought it. Here's our goal. Here's where we're at. So we do that kind of of an update. And then inside of that report, if there's anything that's unique, specific to tax time, or, like during COVID, we were sharing with them our COVID relief plan and all these little interesting things. But those things happen on an every 90-day basis. But we're constantly in front of our investors, so it's not overwhelming. It's just an email once a week that allows them to get a appreciation for, hey, what's new at 5210.
Yeah, no, I love that. Love that. We battle between what's too much, what's not enough, to stay in front of our investors. That we're going to move to a few final questions. Jack, I would love to get your at least quick thoughts on what do you expect to happen? It's what everybody's asking, right? What do you expect to happen in the next 6, 8, 10, 12 months? Because what I say is, people say, well, I don't have a crystal ball. Well, yeah, but we still believe something, because that affects what we do now, right? That affects, are we buying? Are we selling? What are we willing to pay? All those things because of what we believe is going to happen. And how, what do you all believe is going to happen in the next 6, 12 months? And how is that affecting, what you all are doing?
Yes, so I think that we'll continue to purchase mobile home parks because we believe that they will survive any market volatility out there. Especially when mobile home parks are managed correctly, there's really not much that can shake them. So interest rates haven't shaken them. We're selling homes at a faster pace to a higher quality resident today than we were prior when interest rates were 3%. So COVID didn't shake us, so at least from that perspective, mobile home parks are kind of unique. But our view is that from an investment perspective, the greatest challenge that exists in this environment is the interest rate environment, the changes in interest rates. So at some point, from a macro perspective, and I'm a little bit of a nerd around what the Fed's up to and kind of bigger picture in this world. At some point, the impact of that aggressive interest rate move will have an impact on the economy. It'll have an impact on unemployment. And when that occurs, then the Fed will pivot to solving for that. Now, usually that means loosening monetary policy. Likely interest rates will come down. So I think that this is a spot in the middle of the pendulum swing. Right now we're way on one end of the spectrum, and it will come back and it will go the other way. So if you look at history tends to repeat itself because human nature does. So I believe that you're going to see that pendulum swing again. I think potentially this current market could be where there's an opportunity to acquire assets at a discount if you can purchase them and put appropriate debt on them. So fast forward, if a deal works today at 6.5% interest rate, fast forward when you can refinance at 4%, for example, don't purchase it with the requirement of a refinance, but if that shows up, that's going to be gravy. So, and the yield will just get better. So I think that if you look at the political environment, it wouldn't surprise me that, we have an election next year and the current administration is going to want to take credit for the economy being great. So I'm sure there will be some pressure put on the Fed, help us make the economy get fired up again. So who knows? I mean, there's all these potential catalysts that could create that. But I think if the most important lesson that you can learn about real estate is to go study history. History repeats itself. So what's happened before will happen again. And it'll be a different catalyst this time. The next market top and correction will not be because of subprime debt. There will be something else that creates it. But what you can be assured is that human behavior will repeat itself. So we will have another correction. So at both the same time that we're optimistic that we feel like there's more legs left in this real estate cycle, we also have an awareness that it will come to an end at some point. So position yourself so that you can either weather that storm, and that's why we love mobile home parks, or be smart enough to recognize that when it's getting to that point, maybe you should exit some of your assets.
What are some of the most important metrics that you track? Could be personally or professionally.
There's a book out there, and this will be great for your audience. It's written by a guy named Philip J. Anderson. It's called The Secret Life of Real Estate and Banking. In my opinion, that's the best book written on market cycles that's ever been written.
Say the name again. Philip J. Anderson.
Philip J. Anderson, The Secret Lives of Real Estate and Banking. And it goes into the relationship between real estate and money. It also touches on corruption, greed, political influence, all of those things. And it goes back several centuries. And the accuracy of real estate cycles is surprising how accurate they are or how repeatable they are. If you're in real estate and you haven't read that book, that's probably the greatest gift from this podcast. It's $35 on Amazon. You got to go read that book. Yeah.
Well,
so I won't steal the narrative from that book, but I think the highlights of it is that there's a very repeatable human behavior that causes cycles to occur. So we pay attention to a handful of things, and I'll highlight a few of them. What's the price of land in a neighborhood that you know well? And I'm talking about not subdivisions, but like, an individual acre of land compared to what the peak of the cycle was last time. Every single time, the value of a piece of dirt is significantly higher than it was at the last peak. So pay attention to land. You can't pay attention to home prices because the cost of labor and materials goes up with appreciation. So the only comparable apples and apples thing as the land. The second thing I think is important to pay attention to is condo conversions. When it no longer makes sense to purchase apartments for investment, and you see rampant apartments being purchased and converted to condos because it's the only way to make a profit, start sharpening your for sale sign pencil. You should probably sell into that heat. So there's a few other things that book will share, but those are some of the things that we pay attention to on a regular basis.
What are some daily habits that you are disciplined about that have produced the highest return for you?
Highest return has changed. I'll be 50 this year. In 10 years ago, highest return to me was about money. Today, highest return to me is about joy. Joy comes from the relationships in your life. It includes the relationships with investors and coworkers and the residents that you serve, but it also includes your marriage and your children and your friendships. So the daily practices that have given me the highest return of joy is my daily lap with the Lord. It has profoundly changed my view of work. And I realized I used to think that everything great that came into my life was because of me. Good job, Jack. You did a great job. And then I've learned that everything that's good that's come into my life is because of things that have been given to me. Mm-hmm. And so I live a life with more gratitude. It allows me to see miracles, even small ones, every day. And little sips of joy all day long. It's you don't need to go on a vacation to get that every day. You can get it every day.
Love that. That's an amazing habit, or that you would even say that is a habit, because it's incredible. I would agree completely. With our time with the Lord first thing in the morning. That's no doubt about it.
Best way to start your day. Best way to start.
Sharing that. And what about how do you like to give back?
Well, I love education around real estate, but I have another thing that's kind of interesting that's become a little bit of a passion project for me. Because I'm a man who got married young and I screwed it up, and I'm thankful that my wife didn't leave me when I was not a great husband. I spent the next 20 years solving for that. And my wife and I began taking marriage retreats about 4 years ago. And it has 10x'd our marriage to the degree where I hope everybody can get a taste of a marriage that's good. So we began teaching others how to do marriage retreats. And now we're going to write a book about it this year. So it's not part of real estate, but how I show up at work has a lot to do with how it is at home. So I would argue that it is about real estate. But yeah, that's giving back to me is teaching others, sharing the experiences and the lessons and the wisdom that I've been given, so that hopefully they could avoid the pain that I endured.
Wow, love that. I appreciate you sharing that. That's incredible. I'm every day I feel like I'm blown away at my marriage and how the Lord has blessed it. Man, because I speak to so many people who are struggling, right? In their marriage, and some have been married for many years, some not so many, and so it just leads me to being so thankful, right, for what the Lord has done, and because I don't deserve it. I don't deserve it, right? Man, I'm so blown away. But I'm grateful for you bringing that up, because it does play such a role in our business, right? How I'm doing at home in my marriage, man, it greatly affects how I'm doing in my business, right? Or how I come to work every day, and how I treat our employees, or even how I treat my children. So, man, just hats off to you and your wife, Jack, to that focus on the marriage and helping others. Now, we just assume it's going to be great, right? Before you get married, you just think it's just going to be amazing, right?
Well, what's interesting and ironic about this is I go back, and I'm sure most entrepreneurs have the same perspective. I go back to when I started entrepreneurship in the beginning. What was the primary reason for that? I wanted my wife to have an amazing life. I did it for her. And I did it for our children. I want our children to have something that I didn't have growing up. And then you spend so much energy at work, and you become a master or a slave to the business. And what ends up happening is you ignore the things that matter the most. So without question, when you look at the big picture, if I could choose an amazing marriage over an amazing business, I would choose the marriage.
100%.
I would choose the marriage. But if you can have both, pursue both. But just make sure that you focus on the marriage.
That's right.
Yeah.
Jack, grateful to have gotten to know you a little bit and had you on the show. I'm grateful for you sharing that. I feel like that's the most important piece of the whole show, of the whole interview is the importance of the marriage. And I mean, I could not agree with you more, because that's going to affect the business, right? We all focus on business so much that we do neglect, right? Our spouse and our children, the thing that we say we're doing all of this for, right? And I ask people often, well, are you really? Just think about this focus a little bit. But we could talk about it all day. I know it. But Jack, grateful to have had you on the show. Tell the listeners how they can get in touch with you and learn more about you and 5210.
You can learn all about me at 5210.com, and that's the number 52, and 10 is spelled out. So it's 52ten.com. Everything you'll need, including ability to schedule and talk to me on my calendar, is on that website. So thank you so much for inviting me. I know we have other things that we share in common that I'd love to visit with you more on, but thank you so much for allowing me to share some of this experience with your listeners.
Thank you for listening to the Real Estate Syndication Show, brought to you by LifeBridge Capital. LifeBridge Capital works with investors nationwide to invest in real estate, while also donating 50% of its profits to assist parents who are committing to adoption. LifeBridge Capital, making a difference, one investor and one child at a time. Connect online at www.lifebridgecapital.com for free material and videos to further your success.